Years fly by, children grow up, and their parents get older. Not long ago, Thomas was still taking care of Maria. What a happy couple they were. And when their daughter was born, their joy knew no bounds. But Maria has been gone for 5 years now. She succumbed to a terrible illness, and Thomas couldn't save her. It was too late. That damned cancer spares no one, taking lives indiscriminately. Thomas could never forgive himself for Maria's death, as he was a gifted surgeon, as people say. But unfortunately, he couldn't work a miracle. Thomas operated on her himself, but the surgery didn't help. His beloved wife passed away. The inconsolable husband was left alone to raise their daughter Flora. The girl grew up to be a beautiful young woman, just like her mother, with slender build, brown eyes, and a cheerful spirit reminiscent of Maria's. "Dad, I'm getting married. Are you happy?" "I'm so happy, you can't even imagine. He's a great guy, you'll like him," exclaimed Flora, twirling around. "I'm happy for you, Flora. As long as you're happy with this young man," replied her father with a hint of sadness. It's always hard for fathers to give away their beloved daughters, especially since Flora had become Thomas's entire reason for living after Maria's death. "Flora, you've grown up so fast that I didn't even notice how mature you've become." The father gently hugged his daughter. "Dad, 21 years old is no joke," she said playfully. "Yeah, quite a long time indeed," Thomas laughed. "Honestly, Flora, I'm a bit anxious about giving you away to a complete stranger. I don't know him and can only trust your words. But you're a smart girl, and I believe you've chosen a worthy guy," Thomas said hopefully. "Dad, why are you so worried? Luis is a good young man, educated, ambitious, from a respectable family. Besides, we're not planning to move away after the wedding, so I won't be far from you," Flora reassured her father. "All right, dear. Maybe I'm just not ready for such a big event and am a bit anxious, but everything will be fine, I hope," he concluded. Flora ran off to her errands, while Thomas approached the dresser and picked up Maria's portrait. She looked at him with her deep gaze. The man often talked to his wife's portrait, feeling that the bond between them remained. Now, in this special moment, he wanted to share his overwhelming emotions with her. "Maria, my love, our girl has grown up. She's all grown up. She'll be getting married soon. Thank you for our daughter. She's wonderful, just like you, cheerful and kind. How I miss you, my dear." The man wiped away the tears streaming down his cheeks and put the portrait back. Maria looked at him with a tender and approving gaze. Thomas felt warmth and lightness in his heart. A wedding is always a lot of work. Nothing can be forgotten, everything must be considered, and everyone must be invited. In such an important event, there are no small details, everything is crucial. Flora's fiancé was the son of wealthy parents. Naturally, they wanted the best for their offspring, including a suitable bride. Flora, on the other hand, came from an ordinary family, where her father was a surgeon, albeit the best one. They lived modestly on his salary. Flora couldn't be called completely penniless, but to Luis's family, she appeared that way. The groom's parents made no secret of their disdain for the girl, expressing their contempt. The young couple didn't care about their opinions, they were in love and happy. At least, that's what Flora thought, but not Luis. He obeyed his mother because he was a loyal and dutiful son. He believed his mother wouldn't steer him wrong, so if she said Flora wasn't suitable for him, then it must be true. Moreover, his mother had found a more suitable bride for him. "Mom, don't worry. I've thought it through and weighed everything. I was hasty. I realized that everything has its time. I'll let Flora know." "No, you don't need to tell her anything. Let him feel all the pain I've endured these past months. It's good, Luis, that you've come to your senses. You won't regret it, believe me, son." Flora experienced the full extent of her would-be mother-in-law's treachery. The wedding wasn't called off, and the bride spent the morning getting ready, dreaming of a new happy life with her beloved. But one small text message can ruin everything, as it often does. Luis didn't even bother to talk to Flora and explain himself. He simply texted that his mother was against her, and her opinion was very important to him. Plus, he wasn't ready for such a life. Flora was in shock. Do normal people act like this? He said he loved me, swore we'd always be together and never part, thought the girl, as bitterness filled her heart. But why on the wedding day? Didn't he know the day before that he would do this? What cruelty! I did nothing wrong to him. Are these people capable of such nasty acts? Why humiliate me like this? Flora was overwhelmed with thoughts, tears streaming down her cheeks like crystal streams, and she didn't even try to wipe them away. The salty crystals fell on her white dress and dissolved in its many folds. Thomas did his best to comfort his daughter. He felt deeply hurt and pained for her. Flora certainly didn't deserve such treatment. But then, who does? What bride deserves to be in such a situation? No, these people clearly lack human decency if they can be so cruel. He decided to go and talk to Luis and his parents. But it was pointless. Thomas wasn't even allowed in. What's the use of knocking on doors if people don't even want to talk? They're cruel. And Flora's father finally understood that. Anita watched from the window. She saw Flora's father, but she didn't dare to go out. Why get into these squabbles? It was clear they were no longer a couple. The issue was settled. And Flora sank into depression. The world seemed all black to her. Nothing brought her joy. Coldness settled in her soul, and then she found out she was pregnant. "Daddy, I'm going to have a baby, but I don't want it," Flora tearfully told her father. "Flora, it's wonderful to have a baby. You must keep it. It's such a joy when a baby arrives," Thomas rejoiced. He understood the situation was unpleasant, but there was no reason to have an abortion. The baby was innocent. Flora said nothing. She already knew she wouldn't keep the baby and secretly planned to have an abortion. Her father didn't know. Early in the morning, she left for the hospital. Getting rid of the baby didn't bring relief. It made things worse. She didn't want to live. She wandered aimlessly, filled with despair. She went to stay with a friend. It was easier not to see her father, knowing he wouldn't approve of her decision to terminate the pregnancy. And why live such a life anyway? Luis discarded her like an unnecessary thing. No baby. Why live? What's the point? She found blister packs of pills. The solution seemed so close. She poured a glass of water to swallow them all at once. The handful was quite substantial. Good thing the pills are small. Easier to swallow, she thought. What about Dad without me? He'll suffer. Why does he need a daughter like me? The thought quickly faded. After taking the pills, Flora lay down on the bed, feeling cold. She pulled the blanket over her head and curled up. Memories of her mother came to mind, like feeding ducks at the city park pond. The ducks amusingly swam to the shore, stretching their long necks to catch the treats. Then it hit her, she was being carried through a tunnel. Meanwhile, her friend returned from the store. "Flora, how are you? Everything okay?" She called from the hallway. Silence. Erica walked into the room, saw Flora curled up, seemingly asleep. Erica put the kettle on, but an uneasy feeling lingered. Suddenly she noticed the pile of empty pill blisters on the nightstand. Oh my God, Flora took pills. She realized in horror. Erica ran to her friend and started shaking her. Flora showed no signs of life. With trembling hands, Erica dialed emergency services. They arrived very quickly. Then Erica called Flora's father. "Thomas, Flora is in the hospital." The ambulance took her. She came to my place after the abortion and didn't want you to scold her. Then she took pills while I was at the store. I came back and thought she was sleeping, but she was poisoned." Erica quickly explained what had happened. Thomas was in shock. He rushed to the hospital. After speaking with the attending doctor in the ICU where Flora was, he went to see Luis. "Sweetheart, why did you have an abortion? Why did you try to poison yourself?" Thomas thought as he drove toward the cottage. He arrived, got out of the car, and rang the doorbell. Luis's mother herself opened the door. "What have you done?" he shouted at her from the doorstep. "You've ruined the girl's life. Flora is in the hospital, dying. She's a pure soul, she did nothing wrong, and yet you treated her so cruelly. You're not even human." Thomas raged. "I don't understand what this is about," Luis's mother responded indignantly. "We have nothing to do with your daughter, and we're not to blame for her being in the hospital. Never come near Flora again. You're my enemies for life. I will never forgive you for what you did to my daughter," Thomas continued. Luis came out when he heard Thomas's voice and recognized him as Flora's father. "And you scoundrel, will pay for your cowardice and treachery. God help you if I see you near our house, I'll kill you, you little punk. I won't go far, I'll shoot you like a dog. And I have a gun, I'm a hunter, so you know, you bastard," Thomas finished and abruptly turned away. Mother and son stood there, afraid to look at each other. They knew they had done something terrible, but when confronted directly, even the vilest people feel ashamed. Time passed, and life gradually returned to normal. Flora recovered and was discharged from the clinic. Her father supported her in everything, and she began to forget those dark moments that nearly led to her death. She still felt ashamed in front of her father, knowing she almost left him all alone. Flora chastised herself, calling herself selfish. But even those thoughts started to fade, and a peaceful and bright period began. She got a job as a manager at the same company where her friend Erica worked. They worked side by side and also spent time together after a long day. The young women visited clubs, attended trendy parties, and lived like most people their age. Flora slowly thawed and began to live anew. Thomas continued to work at the hospital. At home, after a long day, he was always greeted by a hot dinner. His daughter cared for him, and life finally settled into a pleasant routine. At one of the parties, Flora met a guy named Mario. He made a lasting impression on her. He was cheerful and witty. She found it easy to be with him. "Mario, you know so much, you must have been a nerd in school," Flora laughed. "Well, even if I was, does that change anything?" Mario retorted. "I don't know, good girls usually like bad boys," Flora teased. "Then I'll be bad, very bad." "I really need you to like me," Mario replied simply. "I really like you, Flora, and I'm not giving up." "I was joking, stay just the way you are," Flora said, looking at him intently. Mario seemed very close and familiar to her, as if she'd known him all her life. A month passed. Thomas was on duty when a dying young man was brought to the hospital. The young man had been in an accident during a street race. He was a night street racer, speeding through the city streets with other rich kids, disturbing the night's peace. Thomas donned his suit, gloves, and mask. Approaching the operating table, he was shocked to recognize Luis, the very man who had treated Flora so cruelly. When Luis's mother found out who the surgeon was, she screamed that she didn't trust him and didn't want this doctor to perform the surgery. "He'll kill him on the table, he'll butcher him," the woman shrieked. "Get another surgeon, urgently," she continued. Everyone attributed the woman's irrational behavior to shock. "Calm down, he's the best doctor, he'll save your son," the nurse tried to reassure her. "Thomas, could you come out and explain to the mother that everything will be all right, or else she'll scare all the other patients," the nurse asked. Thomas stepped out into the corridor amidst the commotion. "Stop this chaos. I'm a doctor, and I'll do everything possible to save your son. And don't judge everyone by yourself. Even though I consider you my enemies, I took an oath and I won't break it, even if you deserve it, Thomas said firmly. Anita fell silent and seemed to shrink. She sat down on the couch, and at that moment, she looked like a mortally tired and frightened woman. The surgeon turned and went to perform the operation. The surgery was successful. Flora rushed into the hospital, out of breath and breathing heavily. She had learned from her friend that Luis was in a terrible accident and was now in her father's clinic. "Dad, will he live? Did you operate on him? How is he? Is he all right?" Flora bombarded her father with questions, not giving him a chance to reply. For a moment, it seemed like the Flora who was in love with Luis had returned. This bothered her father, but he composed himself. "Everything's fine, Flora. Luis will live, and he's going to be okay," Thomas replied. Luis was on the mend and was moved to a private room. Flora was by his side the whole time, helping and caring for him. It seemed as though nothing bad had ever happened between them. They avoided talking about the past, and it worked well for them. "Flora, you're so awesome. Let's go out somewhere when I get discharged," Luis suggested. "We'll see," Flora replied evasively. She started to realize that she didn't feel the same about Luis. She felt like a friend, just supporting him in a difficult time. She suddenly realized how much she missed Mario and his radiant smile. "Flora, I wanted to tell you something," Luis said hesitantly. "Flora, let's start over," he proposed. "Luis, you'll recover, and everything will be great for you. But just not with me. We can just be friends, nothing more." Flora looked into Luis's eyes, and her last doubts vanished like smoke. She loved Mario and wanted to be with him and no one else. This thought brought a smile to her face. Luis watched Flora, not understanding what was going on, but he could sense that her thoughts were far from that hospital room. Luis finally understood that his relationship with Flora had been the best thing that ever happened to him, and now he had lost it forever. Flora said goodbye and left the room. She knew exactly where she was going. Mario was waiting for her. He knew Flora's story and, although he was a bit worried about the recent situation, his pure heart told him everything would be all right. He loved Flora and trusted her completely. Flora, being the kind soul she was, came to help her former fiancé. That was normal, that was humane. And Flora and Mario had found each other. Maybe the saying is true, everything happens for the best. Flora had to go through trials and tribulations to meet her true match. Thomas couldn't be happier for his daughter, and he liked Mario as well. And no matter what anyone says, good is still stronger than evil.